Kính thưa đại chúng, hôm
Dear
nay
Sangha, today,
sau buổi pháp thoại thì chúng ta sẽ
after
có
this
khóa
Dhamma
đường
talk, we have formal
formal lunch.
lunch.
Cũng đã lâu rồi chúng
It's
ta
been a
mới có
while.
cơ hội thực tập.
It's been a long time that we had the
khóa đường
chance
như vậy.
to practice this formal lunch.
Đây là một cái sự thực tập
This
được truyền
is
lại
a
từ
practice that
thời
has
xưa
been transmitted to us since the ancient time,
và nó rất là nuôi
and
dưỡng.
it is very nourishing. It's very beautiful.
Chúng ta thay
We,
vì cái
instead of
chúng ta sẽ
eating in the dining hall,
xếp hàng lấy thức ăn.
then we will gather up there
Các
to gather our food in the form of the
rồi tuần tự
monks and nuns back in the days.
ngồi ăn.
And then we will walk as a procession, and then to the big hall, and we'll sit in here and wait for everyone to enter. Then we will start eating.
Nó sẽ dài hơn bình thường một
It will be a little longer than usual,
nó hoàn toàn xứng đáng để
but it is totally worth it, so that we can practice.
vì nó chuyên trở trong đó
Because in
có
it,
những cái ý nghĩa,
it delivers a lot of meanings.
nó
It
truyền lại, nó không mất đi.
transmits. It doesn't lose. It's not lost. It's transmitted until up to this day.
Thực tập cái khất thực trong truyền thống từ xưa,
Truthfully,
thầy có cái sự kết nối
formal lunch or alms round back in the days is to be able to have food for the monks, but also to spread the teachings in the village around the monastery. And the spirit is to just eat whatever the food that the villagers had to offer. And practicing like that, it has a great experience. Here, it's not suitable for us to go down to town and to beg for food, to eat there, or to come back up here to eat. And so, just to kind of relive that, stimulate that, we just gather our food together in front of the dining hall and eat down here together. Normally, after we finish gathering our food, and then we will listen to the bell. But here, during formal lunch, we will wait in the hall for everyone to come, and then we will start eating. That detail is because back in the days, when the monks went out for alms round, they weren't sure that they had enough food for everyone. And so they waited for everybody to return, and then, if need be, they will share each other their food. Then we will start eating. Because in Asia or in India, there's an agricultural nation, and it's not like plentiful of food like we are today. And so that detail is still kept, and up to this day is to remind us that practice. Because it is thanks to these details, it makes the practice to be practical and needed for generation after generation. Before I was ordained, I was just offering myself service in the traditional temples, and I already had the aspiration, the curiosity to find out about monastic life, because I see that this lifestyle was so beautiful. I worked wholeheartedly, served wholeheartedly in the temples, and usually I was able to listen to the uncles and the aunties who were serving in the temple, and they said that eating the food of the temple has a lot of merits in it. And maybe going to the temples, we heard from our grandpas, our moms, that eating in the temple has a lot of merits, but it was very vague. And so one day I asked an elder uncle in the temple, very diligent in cooking, for the ceremonies and for normal meals and say like, so uncle, why do we have a lot of merits eating the food in the temple? And he was a little nervous. It's because he only heard from his grandpa, grandma, or his mom, and so to ask why, then he didn't know. So if the daughter asked, why is it that we eat in the temple and we have more merits? Can we answer that question? So when I answered that question, I asked that question, and he was nervous. He said, "Just eat and then you have merit." Because I wanted to find the meaning in the practice of the temple, but why such an answer? I mean, why that it was like that? So if we avoid answering questions like that from the young ones, then slowly they would give birth to more questions, because life is very colorful. So then we go out and to buy a hamburger and to bring it inside the temple and eat. Is that considered as merit? And here we go out and we buy a burrito and then eat in the temple, in the monastery. Is that merit? And so if we cannot answer the other question, then this question we cannot answer either. And so it's very vague, and we continue to be vague, to be unclear. But a meal in the temple truly has a lot of merits. It brings benefits to not only us, but also our relatives. Because of that, it is transmitted to many generations. It can be the form of the formal meal or the form of the simple meals in the temples. It all has that quality, that spirit. It represents the simplicity in the daily life. It doesn't push us to the realm of luxurious way of living. In the beginning of Rains Retreat, we had a ceremony counting the sticks for the Rains Retreat. Do you remember that ceremony? And then why did we have to give out and then count the sticks? Can we not just count the number of people directly? Why do we have to go in such an indirect way? And it was transmitted from back in the days, because like going on an alms round in the village. There's very something normal in the daily life, and it also presents itself in the practice life. And because a couple of thousand years ago, the number of people who were able to go to school was very limited, maybe not even 1%. And so not knowing how to count, not knowing how to read, that's normal. And so asking us like how the number and like the number of the other person in front of us, how can we tell? And so the patriarchs, the matriarchs, and the teachers thought about this way, giving each person a stick, and then afterwards giving it back. Then someone will know how to count, and to count all of those sticks and then present it in front of the whole sangha. That way of doing it resolved the issue, because the spirit of Buddhism, back from the beginning up to now, it has the simplicity and ethical elements, that it is for all the classes in society. It's not just for the upper class, it's for everyone. Even though it has many wisdoms, it still has the direction that it would take to keep that wonderful element. When I started to go into the temple, I saw that there were explanations that I still couldn't understand. At that time, I wasn't ordained yet. I was just living. I was just staying in the traditional temples. I was able to listen about that the Dhamma talks given by the Buddha was like the sound of the rising tides. It radiates to all directions, to every place, and everyone could hear it. Every corner could hear it. It's like a beautiful image. It's able to visualized so that people can visualize. But in fact, it might be very simple in our daily life. From the old days, there's no sound, technology. So there's no sound system. How can a person speak and then thousands of people can listen to? That's a simple way. Those who sat close to the Buddha who was giving the talk, then will retell it to the people behind them. Then those will just keep retelling that to the ones behind them. So that image was it's like ripples from a pebble dropped into a surface of a lake, and then those tiny ripples will reach to the end of the lake. Sometimes someone listened to that and they could not accept it. Like, is it so worldly? There's nothing holy, nothing special. It's because if we don't have the capacity to see the very simple things in our practice that has great value, and we are able to embrace that, then we would have the tendency to make it mysterious. We don't allow them to manifest in the simple things in our simple daily life. But the most beautiful thing, most beautiful elements and qualities that are treasured by others, it might just be the very simple things in our life. And so we are the same in our practice. If we still feel that its beauty is being transmitted through simple ways, then we are completely able to continue to explain to others how to understand what it is about. When eating a meal in a temple, one generation after another transmitted and guarantee that there is merit in it. It is because when we attend a meal in the temple, we are taught how to eat in mindfulness, how to eat in the energy of peace, of freedom. Each spoon of food is a miracle, is a nourishment. That energy in it, a couple of maybe 2 hours, then it becomes our own energy. And at the same time, in that it is nourished by the energy of siblinghood, of peace, of solidity, of no rushing energy or concerns or worries. And it doesn't just nourish our every cell, but it also nourishes our mind. It creates solidity. It creates peace that others can sense. That is the true merit. Merit is not just in the food. Merit is also in the action, our actions. And because of that, eating a hamburger in the temple, you may also have merit. Or burrito, eating it in the temple, you can also have merit. Because young people nowadays, they prefer hamburger than the food in the temples. And so when a community of practice has the capacity to express the quality of simplicity, and it doesn't need it doesn't have the need to glorify or to make something to put something on like a pedestal. And in the temple, when I was young and serving, I was also following the brothers to take care of the altars, many altars in the temple. Lighting the candles before the chanting session in the morning, lighting incense. And in those moments, I was taught that I cannot light the incense from a candle or an oil lamp on the altar. But I need to start light a fire, a flame outside, and then light the candle. And so I asked, why is that? Then I wasn't explained very well. I was just told to do so. Only years later, many years later, I was able to return to Vietnam, visiting the ancient temples, and I was able to understand why that was. Because back in the days, there wasn't any electrical lights, only candles and oil lamp. And the temples were pretty tall, high, and so the temples were very high. I mean, the altars are very high, and so the candles were, of course, placed very high. So if we want to light an incense and we take that as the source of the candles from up high, it's just too inconvenient. The chance that we will knock over a candle is pretty high. And so then I understood why that was. So that I shouldn't start the incense from a candle. Maybe in the days the baby monks and nuns, maybe a couple of times that they knocked over those candle stands. Even before, they didn't have many metal things. And usually the candle stands was made out of wood, and it might crack or shatter. And so we could not use that candle as a source. So we had to go to the kitchen to find a fire there. And so the rules or these ways of doing things might came from just the practicality of keeping the practice, making things easier. But if we don't understand it, then it might become strict rules. It become something mysterious, mystical, that we don't understand. When there is someone who wants to convert the book O Path White Cloud into a movie, then Thay, just like the sangha, was very happy. And then because we had a chance to help many people to understand the practice in that spirit, but it wasn't successful still, because the director wanted to write the script in a kind of a mysterious and kind of glorified the Buddha as if he was a deity, someone from above, but not someone who is very human. he could not accept. They could not accept that many people could listen to the Buddha's talk. It's because his transmission was very simple, but they want the teachings to be miraculous, to be glorified, that the Buddha can speak to those who are very far away. So when we let the practice going in that direction, then it no longer has the elements. It cannot embrace those who could not count the numbers, could not embrace those who could not go out to beg for food on an alms round on a specific day. No, Buddhism, regardless of how much insight or wisdom it has, or how excellent it can be, it still needs to be able to keep for thousands of generations that simplicity like that. And so sometimes we will recite, we will review the ways in the previous generation, how they were able to resolve the issues in their time. And so we are the same. That practice is that we need to be able to see the teachings in the simple things in our daily life. The things that are effective or practical. We don't just let it go in the direction of mythical. If a tradition of practice that is being drowned, being blurred away from those qualities, those things, then it's no longer a success because it doesn't have the capacity to prove itself, to be applicable in this time. That is why it's kind of hiding itself in mystical things. We follow the footsteps of Thay, of our teacher, so we don't let the teachings to be faded away. It's not like to make the book to be more famous that we will accept the way of the director. No, because Thay's strong points, emphasis, is that in that book, you're able to see that the bhikshus, the monks, practicing in the Buddha's time was still very simple. They still had struggles. They still had limitations. They still had wonderful things in their time. But it is not. It's not just because to let many people know. So today is the same. It's not to let many people know about our temple that we had to follow ways that are not truthful, not simple. We would just let it be able to reach the needs of others. That is the reason why why we still do what others used to do in the past. However, if we just copy exactly what people used to do in the past, then it's not enough. Then that is just we're just copying it. We're just inheriting the results from our matriarchs and patriarchs. Buddhism still needs to be able to reach the needs of today's day, of the present. In the time there were the fourfold sangha, but now it has more than fourfold sangha, just multifold community. So if that community of practice cannot face such a new change, then it cannot resolve the difficulties, the concerns that it is facing. Then it would have a direction to borrow the rules or mystical things to hide itself. No, it has to have the capacity to face those concerns because with time, many things will change, will be different. Our way of seeing things, of our later generations' way of seeing things will be different. The features, the elements that construct the society will be different. And so it leads to different kinds of manifestations. And so if we still have the capacity to explore, to find ways to resolve things that are practical in our daily life, then it will still be transmitted and recited to thousands of years later. We are lucky being able to live in a community that prioritizes these simple things in our practice, and it gives us the chance to find ways to make it more real for the later generations and for our own generation. Then it will always be the simple, truthful thing. Then we have the capacity to do that, and we have the opportunity to do that. Because that is the ideal that we should practice and share with others. But if the practice is only for a small group of people, most suited for the practice, then it will not have the chance to be in the future. It is still that simplicity. Then we will need to involve ourselves in those things. Then we can explain it. When we start to eat a formal meal, we will stand in lines, like a procession, and to gather our food. We walk slowly. We would see that the one who's walking in front of us, or the ones who are walking in front, will have a space between each person, and so we keep that space. We keep that space because in the old days, when they went on an alms round to beg for food in India, there were a lot of cows, and cows was kind of glorified and was considered to be holy. And so people need to make their way around the cows, but not the cows will make their way around humans. And so we had to have a space like that, so that enough for a cow to pass by. Otherwise, it might run into and hurt people. And so we need to investigate in these things, and we see that it has many features. With the purpose is to just reinforce, to help the practice. It doesn't have any mythical aspect to it. And so when we walk like that in lines with our alms bowls, our bowls, and following the brothers and sisters, and we practice to be patient, to wait for everyone. Nowadays, we have enough food. Not often that we need to consider that we need to concern that we don't have enough food. But sometimes we still need to review this. We need to wait for everyone to enter. Just in case if someone doesn't have enough food, then that is our chance to share our food. Share for those who didn't have it. And there would be many people. No. So then we will listen to a sound of the bell, and then we will listen to the contemplations. And then one by one we will pick up our alms bowl. In the past, when I was a novice in Plum Village, attending formal meals like this, many people. In the summer, many people. Maybe 400 or 500, that's normal. But brothers and sisters were also many. And so, one by one, we picked up the alms bowl and started eating. Then the next person, we just follow that. It's like a formality. And so one day I was just speaking funny with our teacher. When the youngest sister on the sister's side was able to pick up her bowl, then our kind of eldest on the brother's side was already eating on his third spoon, because there were so many of us that would take a long time. I was just kidding. But then Thay actually changed the format. So only the first row had to follow that formality. Just one by one picked up the spoon and eat. But then after that, the lines the lines behind them can pick up the spoon. So he wants to keep that practicality. But it still needs to be simple. Because if we have a food with that many people and so many are eating and we cannot eat yet, it's a pity. It's such one delicious food. So Thay changed that, but he still keeps the way that after we finish, we still keep our alms bowl empty in our hands, waiting for our elders to close the lids and put it down. And so Thay changed things, but he still keeps the spirit, the beauty that Thay has chosen to keep and transmit it to us to practice. He doesn't let the practice to be mysticalized. He doesn't. We don't accept the fact that Buddha was praised as someone who is from above. He still needs to be someone, an image that is close to people in their daily life. He still ate like we do. He still walked like we walk. And in mindful steps. And these are the things that we would pass on to our next generation. That we will explain how it is, why it is, to our descendants, that eating in the temple has merits in it. So we eat. It's not like we just kind of wait until the contemplation to pass and then we just eat. No, it's each spoon is to be in mindfulness. It's in the chewing. It needs to be freedom in there. In that way, eating like that, we would have a siblinghood as the nourishment, aware of the presence of the sangha around us. Don't allow ourselves to wander. Noticing that our Dharma friends on the path, are eating happily. We don't need to follow things that are no longer suitable to applicable in this day. In the temple, when I was eating, I was not allowed to look into the bowl of the person sitting next to me. Because back in the days, the food in thousands of years ago, maybe there wasn't enough, very limited, because it was based on agricultural a lot. Agriculture. So maybe there's not always enough food in the temple. Maybe we could not always be on top of our greed, wanting to eat more. Yes. And so seeing looking into another person's bowl, then maybe we'll give rise to some not so wholesome thinking. And so that was that way of practice was born so that we can guard ourselves. We just mind our own portion. We cannot look at the portion, at the plate of the person sitting next to us. But now it's no longer like that. But now we look at our friends eating in solidity, in happiness, then we are nourished. So the limitation of the day is no longer present. And so now we can look at our friends eating. Our teacher taught that when we eat informal meals, we should be able to see the sangha is eating with us. Back in the days, we could not look at the bowl of the person next to us. That is because it was now it is able to nourish ourselves, and we have to be brave. We see the reason, and so that's how we transcend the rules and restrictions. And so we're able to sense this true spirit, the true spirit. Then our next generation would not make these things mystical. And so now, if someone comes in later, we and start to join their palms to contemplate, then usually the ones who sit next to or close by will stop eating, and then after they finish contemplating, they will bow in gratitude to those around them, because it's out of respect that we like to stop eating to make that moment a little silent for that person to finish contemplating. It's nothing mystical. And so maybe if we don't understand it, then our later generation might just take it as a set in stone rule, as a strict rule. It's like that example of no lighting incense by a candle or looking at the bowl of the person sitting next to us. It is possible that our practice will fall into these ways if we cannot keep the essence of simplicity. Maybe all the restrictions, all the rules back in the days, they were born from just the place of wanting to support the practice. It's not really something wrong to do. And so if a practice is able to keep that simplicity in the spirit, then it is always worthy of others to practice and to continue. And at the same time, they would not have the tendency to copy the same. Those who went before us will just copy the same. No, because we also have the needs to expand, the needs to change, to be able to suit the needs of the present day. Like the fourfold sangha, now is the multifold sangha. And before there wasn't that much things around us to kind of not this complicated. And now we know how to count more easily. We know more things. But the limits of others in our society is still quite similar to those in the past, but it's in a different form. So if our practice or the community that we're practicing with, or the tradition of practice that we are following, still able to keep the capacity to ready and change for themselves and for the later generation, then it is still worthy for us to continue. But if we want to be able to explain something in there and they just kind of could not explain to us, then that is not fine. As long as there are still friends on the path that understand. Maybe we don't understand, but if our friends understand and able to explain to us the practice using simple explanations, simple examples, then that's okay. We don't need to wait until we understand everything, all the forms, all the ways. Then we have faith in the practice. No, we can borrow. We can borrow the understanding of others, the understanding of the high teachings. Many times, not many times our teacher was able to explain his wisdom or the wisdom of those who went before us in very simple ways. So maybe the way we sense or the way that we transmit the teaching is not comparable to our teacher, but with the understanding and the way that we transmit, we can we won't allow our tradition of practice, like a teacher described, that it's like something, some beauty that is so high up that normal people cannot reach. It's like a house that is so high that it's very beautiful up there, but there's no such ladder that we can climb up to it. No, our practice is always gonna be that ladder that we can go up to. It has to be very practical like that. Then it is the reason. It is a reason for us to follow, to be able to use it. So today, we are like that. We have a formal meal. There are many forms that are from the past, from the monks from the past generations they used to do. And if we still could feel the beauty in it, could still feel the nourishment in each spoon of food, in each look, in the eyes, and the energy of those who practice with us, then that is good. Maybe sometimes we're eating and we are thinking about something we forget. Then thanks to the energy of the sangha, we can eat in such a way we can that each spoon of food is nourishing. So then later we will have the courage to explain to the young ones eating in such a way. And why is it that eating in the temple has merits? Then we can explain to our granddaughters like that. We will be able to explain why we can light from a candle, light an incense from the candle on the altar, or the oil lamp. In Plum Village, sometimes in the morning, we light the candles in the morning. Sometimes we cannot find a lighter because sometimes it runs somewhere to serve a tea house or somewhere in the monk's residence, and so we need to find a source of fire, maybe from the candles or the fireplace. So if we understand the essence of the practice, we will be brave enough to transmit that to the later generations, because it is nourishing us and it is not bound to the shadows of mystical. And we are courageous, just like Thay. It's like our teacher. We don't allow it to become something mystical, but something very simple. So I'd like to invite all of us to enjoy the formal lunch in the form of those who went before us, who used to do this, but with the spirit of our present day. If we waiting a little too long to eat, then maybe we can contemplate it in this way. Thank you, dear Sangha.